Up until recently, I hadn't heard of darkFlash at all. That was until I laid my eyes on the DLM21, which is a micro ATX case that comes with some very interesting premium design choices at the price point of just $60. And if you've actually been watching a few of my previous videos, you may have noticed it has been home to my personal workstation as of late, temporarily of course. Well, after getting my hands on the DLM21 and messing around with it and like falling in love with it, I decided to reach out to darkFlash to see if they had any other cases that I could check out. And they did. The darkFlash V22 full ATX case is what they sent over to me, and I really do think that you're gonna like this one. All right, so first of all, price-wise, you're looking at about $100 to grab yourself one of these cases. It comes in 4 different colors, including the white one that I have right behind me that's now home to my personal workstation. It comes in black, mint green, and pink. And it doesn't come with any fans whatsoever, which is kind of a bummer and actually kind of nice at the same time. Now, hear me out real quick. I've been building PCs for a long time, and I've helped several friends build their rigs too. And as of late, a lot of people that I've worked with will replace the included fans anyway. So as long as when you're taking a look at this case and you're looking at competition, you add an additional $30 to $40 when comparing them, I think this isn't actually a terrible choice that darkFlash made here by just kind of omitting the fans in general. The front panel of the case is going to be all metal, and then it has these mesh sides to allow for a pretty good amount of airflow. I had absolutely no issues with my system being suffocated during my tests, and found that the front panel to be very nice and sturdy as well. Under the panel, you're going to find a dust filter that spans the entire intake area and screw holes for 2 140mm fans or 3 120mm fans. Now, there is probably enough room here for a 240mm, 280mm, or a 360mm radiator here, but since this case has a unique design, which we'll talk about it more in just a second, you probably won't be able to fit a radiator here due to the graphics card getting in the way. You may be able to get it to work, but I really wouldn't count on it. Moving on to the side panels, you'll find a standard metal side panel on the back, as well as a really nice tempered glass swing style side panel on the front. The front panel is held closed with pretty impressive magnets, while the back panel is held on with 2 thumb screws. By the way, these thumb screws are actually slightly bigger and badder than the typical thumb screws you'll see on different cases here and there. But I really like these thumb screws. They are super nice to use, and I know it's kind of a weird thing to be getting excited about, but I'm telling you, just the fact that they're a little bit bigger, they're easier to grab, they are absolutely awesome. On the top of the case, you'll find your I/O, which includes your power button, your reset button, 2 USB 3.0, as well as your typical HD audio jacks. Now, I would have really liked to see USB-C ports on this case due to its price point, as the vast majority of the competition does already have them. And for those of you who would use USB-C, it could actually be a pretty big deal breaker, as this case has a unique internal design which makes it kind of hard to work with the rear I/O of the motherboard, which is actually neatly tucked away under this little shroud and in this little cubby that's going to actually be on top of the case. The shroud easily pulls off for access to the motherboard's rear I/O, as well as any expansion cards that you may have added. I really like this cubby. It's what makes the case unique, and cable management such a breeze with this case. Now, I will say it's not perfect, as you may find you're going to need longer cables, and as I hinted earlier, accessibility isn't the absolute best, but I really do like it, and I really want to see what type of other innovations come from it in the near future. Moving to the back of the case, there really isn't much to it. You'll find yourself with room to mount 2 120mm fans or a 240mm radiator. And due to the interior design of the case, you should have no issues fitting a radiator here. Under the fan mounts, you have your cutout for the power supply, and then on the bottom of the case, there's a removable dust filter that will help keep your power supply nice and clean. When you move into the case, this is where the design aspect really stands out. So instead of mounting your motherboard vertically with the I/O shield facing like the back of your system, in this case you actually mount the motherboard horizontally, and the I/O shield faces upwards towards the top of the case. And at first it does seem kind of strange because of things like, you know, if you can't really notice it right now, but Your graphics card hangs like a bat, and the fact that the air CPU coolers will actually be blowing upward rather than like out the back in a typical case. But in practice, I do think it kind of makes a lot of sense. Airflow from the front blows directly through the graphics card, so we should theoretically see lower GPU temperatures, and if you add more fans to your system, you should also theoretically see a greater impact with adding those fans. And this kind of impact shouldn't just impact like the GPU, but it should impact your entire overall system, because your GPU is typically your hotter component compared to your CPU, so it produces more heat, and if you have obviously the fans that are blowing through it, should naturally just cool it a little bit better. Now the trade-off with this interior design is that darkFlash couldn't implement a full PSU shroud. So although you can see that there's a cover right here, there's no cover in the actual case, so you can kind of see cabling if you look down into the case. And they probably could have tried to figure something out here, but there is a lot of hoops to kind of jump through. For example, you have the 24-pin power connector that is literally directly above your power supply, and then graphics cards aren't typically shorter than 9 inches long, so you'd have to figure out a way to fit more graphics cards in there. And since it's supposed to be a premium case, you're probably going to have a more expensive graphics card anyway, so you have like a lot of hoops to jump through at that aspect as well. You'd have to add some sort of shifting, I don't know, you'd have to have something in there, and it would be kind of a pain in the butt. Moving to the back of the case, you will find 2 SSD trays as well as a removable hard drive bay that are secured with thumb screws. There is also plenty of space to route cables as needed. I did kind of expect a bit more cable management options at this price point because of what you get from cases at around the same price. Features such as like pre-installed Velcro straps or grommets around the cable management cutouts are super nice to see and do help simplify the build process a ton. Plus, it also makes everything look a lot nicer. It's not a deal breaker, but I do think that it should be here at this price point. And so at this point, I would typically want to talk about noise levels and thermals for like a case review, but this case actually didn't come with any stock fans, so I wasn't quite sure how I should approach testing the case out to keep it consistent with future case reviews. If you have any ideas on how I could do my case testing, like the actual thermals and noise testing, feel free to drop them below. My initial thought is that what I'll do is get a set of 3 fans that I could just move from case to case to case and test it out that way. But again, I want to hear from you guys to see what exactly you guys want to see in the thermal and noise testing for cases. Overall, I do think this case is pretty competitive at the price point. I would definitely like it even more if it included fans or was around the $80 price point, but even at $100, I think it brings to the table some unique options. And initially, I was confused on why it lacks some of these features that I listed out here today, especially since most cases have them at this price point, such as like, rubber grommets or like a full power supply cover or even Velcro straps in the back. But after building in it and working with it over the last couple weeks, I realized that it's not that it necessarily lacks like the basic features that all these other cases have at this price point. It's more so that it actually trades them off for other unique features, such as like the cubby up top and making just cable management outside the case a lot easier. If you enjoyed this video, please like this video and consider subscribing for more tech content just like this. Don't forget to let me know how you think I should approach testing thermals and noise output for case reviews down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.